Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a massive shift in America's drug policy, the potential reclassification of marijuana. We're going to break down what this means for the whole country, but maybe more importantly, what it could mean right here at home. So here's the game plan. First, we'll tackle the big national story, the proposal to reschedule marijuana. Then we'll get into the thick of the debate around it, and you'll see how Tennessee's laws are, well, they're just different. And we'll wrap up by focusing on a really critical safety issue for families, and that's the hidden danger of THC edibles. Okay, let's just dive right in. The federal government is seriously considering a historic change in how it classifies cannabis. And this isn't some small tweak. It's a move that could send ripples into every single state. This didn't just happen overnight, not at all. It's really the latest chapter in a long story that kicked off with federal prohibition way back in 1937. Fast forward through decades of states doing their own thing, and here we are, at this really pivotal moment in 2024. So before we get any deeper, we've got to talk about the system at the very heart of this whole debate. The federal government uses these things called schedules to categorize drugs. Think of it like a ranking system based on medical use versus the potential for abuse. And this is the absolute key point right here. Right now, marijuana is sitting in Schedule 1. That's the same category as drugs like heroin, a category specifically for substances with no accepted medical use. The big proposal? To move it all the way down to Schedule 3. That would acknowledge it does have medical uses and has a much lower potential for dependence, putting it in the same ballpark as things like Tylenol with codeine. That's a huge jump. Okay, so if it seems like a big change, why isn't it a done deal? Well, this whole thing is far from settled, and believe me, there are really strong, compelling arguments coming from both sides of the aisle on this one. Folks who are for this see it as a change that's been needed for a long time. They argue it finally gets federal policy in sync with the dozens of states that already have medical cannabis programs, and it would tear down these massive barriers to doing real scientific research. Now, from a business perspective, it's a total game changer. Legal cannabis businesses could finally take normal tax deductions, just like any other company. Think about what that does. It frees up a ton of money for growth, safety, you name it. But then you have the other side, and they are raising some serious red flags about public health. The big worry is that rescheduling will basically send a message that marijuana is totally harmless, which could lead to more use, especially among young people. They also point to these big unresolved questions, like how do we handle driving under the influence? And does this just create a legal mess where state and federal laws are constantly clashing? So with all of this happening on the national stage, how does it all trickle down to Tennessee? Well, it turns out Tennessee has kind of been playing by its own rulebook for a while now. And this chart really shows you the key difference right away. The federal system, 5 drug schedules. Tennessee, we've got 7. And look where marijuana is. It's not in Schedule 1 with heroin. The state put it in its very own category, Schedule V. And make no mistake, that was a very deliberate choice. Lawmakers in Tennessee actually created Schedule Vs specifically for marijuana and THC. It's a legal way of saying, hey, in our eyes, this is different from substances like heroin, which, by the way, are still in the state's own Schedule 1. Okay, so this brings us to the big question for everyone living here. If the federal government actually moves marijuana to Schedule 3, does anything really change for us in Tennessee? Now, you'd think a federal change would just automatically trickle down and update state law, right? But it's not nearly that simple. A federal move doesn't just erase Tennessee's own laws. In fact, like some legal experts are pointing out, it could actually make things even more confusing, creating a tangle between state and federal rules. And get this, while the whole country has its eyes on this federal debate, Tennessee is already making its own moves. A new state law has been passed that is going to completely reshape the local market here. Yeah, starting in 2026, things are going to look totally different. The state is banning products with THCA. That's a key ingredient in a lot of the smokable hemp products you see now. They're also banning all online sales and restricting in-person sales to licensed 21 and up only shops. That means pulling them out of gas stations and convenience stores. This is a huge shift, and it's all about controlling who can get these products. You can see how all these changing laws are creating a really confusing landscape. And in that confusion, one specific danger has risen to the top, becoming a major concern for parents and officials, especially right here in Sullivan County. And that's the risk of THC edibles. I mean, look at them. They often come in packaging designed to look exactly like popular snacks and candy. And that's what makes them so uniquely dangerous for kids, who might have no idea what they're actually grabbing. That harmless look, it's hiding a very real risk. The single biggest danger here is the delayed fuse. It's not like smoking, where you feel the effects almost right away. With edibles, it can take up to 2 hours to even kick in. So you can imagine what happens. Someone inexperienced takes one, thinks, hey, this isn't working, and takes more. That's how you get a severe overdose when the full effect finally hits, hours later, and then lasts for a very, very long time. So for any parent out there, it is absolutely vital to know how to recognize the signs of an overdose. We're not just talking about someone feeling a little uncomfortable. This can escalate to severe panic, actual cardiac stress, and even scary psychotic symptoms like paranoia or hallucinations. Knowing what to look for is your first line of defense. So what can you actually do to protect your family? The guidance here is really straightforward. If you have these products in your house, they must be stored securely, locked up just like you would with prescription medicine. You've got to have those tough conversations with your kids about the specific dangers of edibles. And know this, if you ever suspect an overdose, the only right move is to call 911 immediately and get medical help. And all of this leaves us with one final and really crucial question. As federal policy is shifting and states like Tennessee are drawing their own lines in the sand, the ground beneath our feet is constantly moving. It really forces all of us to ask, who is ultimately responsible for navigating this new landscape? Is it the lawmakers, the businesses, or does that responsibility fall to us in our own homes and in our own communities?